the Eagles in their minds it's weird. The Eagles aren't 8-0 in their mind, which is what I think helps play into that underdog mentality that they still try to possess.
Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 with Mac and Mac. That would be McMullen and McDonald. And we are joined by Mac, and Mark, or Mark, Mac, and Mac, whatever you want to put it together. We appreciate him jumping in with us. Marc Farzetta here on Birds 365. Farzy, I do like your studio. I got to give you that. We love our ocean drop back, but your studio is pretty cool.
I'm actually in my kitchen. My wife hates this, but it's okay. It's some fake brick. Imagine what some fake brick can do.
We used to have fake brick way back at the start of the show, Jody. We had the fake bricks.
Before we went down the ocean, we had fake brick.
Yeah, we had fake brick.
Whatever pays the bills.
Exactly. The Farzy Show. So you see it right there. So make sure to listen to Mark there every Monday through Friday. But here we're lucky enough to have him on Birds 365. You know, I talk about this a lot with Jody, and I want to get your thoughts because you've been doing this for a long time, and you know Philadelphia fans better than most, Mark. Philadelphia has this underdog mentality. We know that that the Eagles are no longer underdogs. Why can't people admit that to themselves? They're going to be favorite unless something drastic happens in every game for the rest of this season. They are the best team in football. Why is everybody scared of that other shoe dropping, Marc Farzetta?
I don't know, and it drives me crazy when I hear a lot of the national interviews talk about in a roundabout way. Like after they beat the Texans on Thursday night, there's Tony Gonzalez asking them on Prime in a roundabout way. So when do you guys think you're going to lose? Like basically every national media outlet is now starting to, well, yeah, they're doing well, but when do you think they lose? So immediately they go to the negative, which is just astonishing to me. I know it makes for, I guess, a good conversation, but the Eagles in their minds it's weird. The Eagles aren't 8-0 in their mind, which is what I think helps play into that underdog mentality that they still try to possess. They're 1-0 every week. Like right now, they're sitting at 0-0. They want to go 1-0 coming up Monday night against the Washington Commanders. And I know that sounds like it's almost cliche or coach speak or whatever, but this Eagles team, from even right before when the season started, Jason Kelce laid out the blueprint of, hey, look, I don't want to get comfortable. The coach shouldn't be comfortable. None of us should be comfortable. The minute we're comfortable is the minute when we start making mistakes. So he wants to look at every win they have throughout the course of the season as if it was a loss and look at all the things that they didn't do right. And what has become the mantra of this team is the pursuit of perfection. And that's not in terms of a perfect record. That's in terms of playing the perfect game. And as we all know, because you guys have certainly been watching this stuff and covering this stuff for a long time as well, man, when it comes to sports, you never play that perfect game. So I think it's a brilliant thing from Jason Kelce, the team leaders, Nick Sirianni, and even Jonathan Gannon to really preach that pursuit of perfection when it comes to finding that perfect game in their 17-game schedule.
All right, I'll half answer John's question with my next question. And I'm going to get myself in trouble here because I'm going to question a guy who can't be questioned in this town. If you'll remember at the beginning of the season, the Hall of Fame center of the Philadelphia Eagles did go off on a bit of a rant when he said, yeah, all you guys are talking us up. We only do well when you guys say we're going to stink. And you guys meaning the media and the fans. Well, yeah, some of us picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl, did like this team coming into the season and said they were going to be very good. And Jason Kelce didn't want to hear it from me or anybody else who was saying the Eagles were going to be real good. How are the Eagles this good, John, Mark? Because they can't do well when the media and or the fans think they're going to do well.
Well, I think it's a very simple answer as to why they're doing well. And it comes down to the two biggest questions that they had going into the season. All the pressure for both sides of the football. On offense, it was obviously on Jalen Hurts. On defense, it was on Jonathan Gannon. And you look at the way those two guys have responded to the adversity they faced in the offseason of, is Jonathan Gannon the right defense coordinator for this team? Is he aggressive enough or whatever? Howie Roseman in the Eagles front office said, hey, guess what, John? We're going to give you the pieces and let's see how you do. They've only responded by being one of the best defenses statistically in the entire NFL this season. So I'd say that's a pretty nice jump from year one to year two for Jonathan Gannon. Year two of Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback is one of the greatest leaps we have ever seen of any athlete ever in the city of Philadelphia. From year one as a starter to year two as a starter, one of the greatest leaps ever. You're talking about right now, I believe, the front runner for the MVP award in the NFL. So going into the offseason, it was, is Jonathan Gannon really the right guy for the DC job? Is Jalen Hurts really the franchise quarterback going forward? And as of right now, I think Jalen Hurts has risen to the occasion and without question will be offered some sort of very lucrative deal, I think, before even the season lets out. And then Jonathan Gannon, of course, will get the offers for head coaching positions around the NFL.
Yeah, by rule, they have to wait till after the season when it comes to an extension. But, we're talking Kyler Murray. That's, that's where I start and say, okay, I need at least $1 more than Kyler Murray.
It's going to be more than $1 more, Johnny Mac. I can tell you that right now.
That's where it starts. That's what I'm saying. That's where it starts. But, you bring up Jalen, Mark, because it was interesting. And I'm surprised. I don't know if you saw Dan Orlovsky yesterday mention anybody could be doing this. Justin Fields could be 8-0 with what the Eagles have on offense and with this coaching staff. The perfect situation for an NFL quarterback. I still get these seeping little, not all over. I don't want to blame everybody, but there's still a lot of people that don't believe in Jalen Hurts. This organization has been around since 1933. Nobody has ever played quarterback and won 11 consecutive regular season games. Well, it's time to believe, isn't it? Jalen Hurts?
I think the answer, I think, lies in a very famous, very overused word right now, and that is hater. Hater. If you don't acknowledge the fact that Jalen Hurts is a front runner right now for the MVP award, at least in the top 2 or 3 at worst in the NFL, if you don't acknowledge the huge leap forward he has taken this year, you are a hater. Perfect record. Oh, who have they played? Well, they gave the team that only has one loss in the NFL their only loss. The Bills just lost to the Jets, and I know everyone's talking about what a sweet surprise the Jets are. They've lost their number one running back, who's having a great year to this point in Breece Hall, and they played without him last week against the Bills. The Bills still lost that game. I think you're just a hater if you don't acknowledge how much Jalen Hurts has improved and how great he has been just by any standard this year. You're talking about a guy who can't throw the football. He's the second-rated passer in the NFL right now with his 107-plus passer rating. Only 2 has a higher passer rating than him right now. You look at what he's been able to do in his ground game. He has been very good on the ground still. He has, I think, picked his spots to run a lot more admirably and more knowledgeably this season. And I have seen him throw – the biggest thing for me with Jalen Hurts is when I see him throw that slant route, or when I see him throw to either A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert across the middle of the field, and that is on point every time. It shows when someone goes into the offseason that it is possible that they put in the effort, they put in the time, they put into work, they talk to the right people, and when they come back, they can actually be very, very good and very much improved. And that's what Jalen Hurts has done this year. Every facet of the game he's improved upon. And if you don't acknowledge it, you're just a big old hater when it comes to Jalen Hurts.
I like your stance. I mentioned this on Birds 365 on Monday. Just came across this stat. Eagles have played 8 games. Do the math. That's 480 minutes of football so far this year, 240 of which have been played in the second half of games. Mr. Farzetta, how many minutes in those 240 minutes have the Eagles actually trailed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, in the second half, I believe 0.
That would be 0.
Yeah.
They have not trailed at all in the second half of a football game in their 8-0 start. So if you want to question it, and yes, it's a reach to do so, is it a good thing if they actually are losing a game in the second half? It's kind of like the conversation we're having of, oh, it's good to lose a game. Get that loss out of the way. Get the monkey off your back, the pressure of it. Yeah. No, you play to win every single game. and you should play to be ahead every single game in the second half of every single game. But there is something to be earned and gleaned from dealing with something you haven't had to deal with yet. There's no chance they're trailing in the second half against the Commanders this Sunday, is there?
No, I don't think so. But I will say this, admittedly, one of my favorite things to do in life, and this might just show you how sad my life can be. One of my favorite things to do in life is on the pregame show, or whenever I've been on and shared a microphone with Seth Joyner, is to get him to crack a smile at certain points. And blitz. But I made the point last week about how the Eagles are in a situation where when they finally got down by 2 touchdowns against the Jaguars, we were all like, oh, good, they're trailing. You know what I mean? And I made that point and Seth started cracking up. And it's true to a point because I still thought they were going to win that game, but it was like, okay, good. Now they're going to cross off the idea of them. They have to come back in a game, and they did that. But what's really interesting about that stat, Jody, and I didn't even think about it, is that they haven't scored in the second half up until recently. I mean, you go into last week's game, and they had scored, 70% of their points in the second quarter. So they were barely scoring in the second half, and for them to still not trail in the second half is astonishing to me. That's a great stat. And I don't believe so much in the idea of getting a loss out of the way, because I think this Eagles team is a perfect example of it. They're not play. And the reason I don't think they want to hear about the record isn't because, like, Jalen Hurts talked about being 2-4, 2-5 last year. No one wanted to talk about the record then. So why are we talking about it now? I don't think that really has anything to do with it. I think it more so has the idea of playing the right mind game. Because the minute you start thinking about 8-0 or 9-0 or a streak of any kind, the minute you start recognizing it for being bigger than what it actually is, that's when you get into trouble. And I think the Eagles do a great job, again, with their coaching staff, with their leaders on this team. I think they do a great job of boiling it down to its simplest form, which is we got one game this week. All we got to do is win one game this week. That's it. We got to improve from 0-0 to 1-0. And that's the way they've looked at it all year.
And it's kind of amazing that everybody's bought into it. But, you know, how I look at it, Mark, is everybody makes the boxing analogy, right? You got to have that 15-round fight. They don't even fight 15 rounds anymore. But you got to be in that hard, and you got to prove yourself. Isn't it better to be Mike Tyson in his prime and just beat the crap out of people in the first 40 seconds and be done?
Yes.
You're not getting paid by the hour.
Yeah.
What do I care how I win?
Yeah.
What do I care? I don't got to go 15 rounds with these teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get the mentality of, oh, you got to prove yourself in this atmosphere. I mean, I get that you're probably going to be in that game somewhere along the line, but it shouldn't be a goal of anyone. It should be the goal to get in there and Mike Tyson people.
Let's suck for a while, and then all of a sudden let's win it in the end, just to show people we can do it. No, I think, again, it comes down to its simplest form, and it's just win, baby. It's as simple as that. Just win. How are the Eagles going to have an undefeated season if they do? Well, they just win. How are they going to beat the Commander? Well, they're just going to win. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, I remember watching the 08 Phillies team and just thinking, wow, this team, they have one stud pitcher, and all of a sudden they're winning the World Series. What? How's that even happen? You know how? They just won. They found a way to win. And that's why after they beat the Cardinals, which a lot of people looked at and said, oh, man, they were lucky to escape that game with a win. Okay, fine. I'll be lucky. And I'll try to
don't use that word. Don't use luck. We got to talk about that. But,
okay.
I hear
organizations don't like the use of that word. You can't be using that, Farzy.
All right. Well, how about this? They create their own good fortune. How about that? All right. And they capitalize on their opportunities for that.
That's like McMullen's randomness. Same friggin' thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. But they take advantage. The opportunity presents itself, and they take advantage of situations that present themselves and that they create on their own as well. But like that Cardinals game, for instance, they found a way to win. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams obviously find ways to lose. The Eagles have done a hell of a job finding ways to win.
All right. Hypothetical for both you guys. We get to New Year's Day, and the Philadelphia Eagles are 15-0. They've just taken care of the Dallas Cowboys the week before on Christmas Eve, and they're playing the New Orleans Saints, which they have added incentive to try and stick a loss on at the end of the season. But they have already wrapped up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. No one can catch them in division, in conference, 15-0. Nobody's even close. Do we get the JV again this year like we did last year in the last week of the season against the Dallas Cowboys? Since John told me earlier in the show, Howie Roseman dictates this, not the actual coaching staff deciding what players play. The organization decides what will be the organizational decision that day about who plays against New Orleans.
I'm shutting them down. I mean, I don't care about going 17.
Are we going Gardner Minshew or Ian Book? How low?
Oh,
We're going
Gardner.
limbo here. How
Gardner.
low can you go?
I would go Gardner. Yeah, Gardner's gonna play. But yeah, I mean, the goal is the Super Bowl. The goal is not 17-0. And this team has been very cognizant of health and safety and keeping the players ready. So why would you change to chase a regular season mythical standard? Basically, that's how I would look at it. Mark,
it's hard to argue against it, John. It's a fine point, and I agree with a lot of your points. But if you have the chance to be the greatest football team ever in the history of football teams, I am going after it. If I'm the Eagles, hey, look, maybe they don't play the whole game. Maybe you play them a half and you just keep them warm, keep them fresh, keep them warm, keep them ready to go and all that stuff. Then, you go for the extra victories there. You try to be the perfect
team. By the way, Mark, I believe Nick Sirianni would take that path, but sometimes I think you got to save somebody from themselves.
Let me take it. Let me take it a step further on your line of thinking, Farzy. If you're going to use them some, not all, but some.
Yeah.
Do you start them?
Yes.
Or do you bring them in off the bench?
Oh, no.
No. I start him.
You might be able to put Gardner Minshew out there and wear the game. The Saints are pretty bad. You might be able to play your JV and still win the game with the JV. But do you start the JV and then go, first time we're losing in the second half. Get in there, Jalen.
I see your point, and I understand the logic behind it, the way thinking. But no, if you're my starter, you're my starter. You're going out there and you're starting. And I at least try to establish the tone, establish a nice lead by, maybe you do it at the end of the first quarter because, like you said, the Saints are pretty terrible. But yeah, I still go for it. I go for it all. And it's not just going for an undefeated season. Again, it's going, especially in an expanded season, the greatest football season and being the greatest football team ever. You have a chance to do that. I say you go for it.
Yeah. That is way out of the box, Jody, bringing in people to be closers.
Closers, yes. Jalen Hurts, the closer. Farzetta is talking about the haters of Jalen Hurts. You can wipe some of those haters out coming off the bench.
Think about it,
something that nobody ever does.
You got to think about perception. Now, what if Jalen Hurts doesn't start? You put him in the second half, and then he gets hurt. Ooh,
yeah.
That would be a disaster. But maybe you would do what Mark said, or start players and try to do the Mike Tyson and try to blow somebody out and then pull everybody. But yeah, any other way. And I don't think it's important. And that's where it comes into, which I think is a media more driven narrative, fan driven narrative, where you say you got to get that loss out of the way. This is the reason people say that. You got to get the loss out of the way so these questions don't pop up and say, why are you wasting your time trying to win a meaningless game in week 17, week 18, when you have bigger fish to fry?
Yeah, I don't understand why a coach, when teams have done really well in any sport, I don't understand why a coach just hasn't had a meeting and say, look, guys, whenever we get asked about a record or whenever we get asked about, like, even if it's Aaron Judge hitting home runs, whatever, every time we get asked about it, here's the stock answer. And we would hate it as media people. Yeah. But hey, here's 3 sentences. And it's like the scene in Bull Durham, like, good Lord willing, things will work out. I'm just here to help the ball club. Like, write those down and everyone say the same thing. That way the question doesn't even, it gets said and you just respond like this, like a Manchurian candidate, and you just move on from the question like that to block all the outside
I like
noise.
The reference. I
like that?
I love it. Yes, love it. The reference.
John McMullen is the kindest, warmest gentleman I've ever met in my entire life.
Now we know you're lying. All right, Farzy, I've been asking this of guys on the show all week, so I got to put it to you too. It's
what do you got?
Kind of moving away from 8-0. Howie Roseman might be doing some work this week. He did it last week, got the Eagles an extra pass rusher, didn't do anything right at the deadline. The deal wasn't out there to be had, so he didn't overstep. But now he's got a window here to potentially get a key Eagle guy or 2 or 3. I don't think it can be any more than 3 because they're at some point going to have to talk to Jalen Hurts after the season is over and done with, so he can't spend all the money. But he's been very good during his tenure as general manager of getting guys signed to contracts before they become free agents. The entire Eagle defense, or damn close to it, is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. This side of Darius Slay and Hassan Reddick, all the key guys are free agents. You got maybe one guy on offense that you would look to try and extend at this time. But again, Miles Sanders, you put in whatever perspective you think you should. If you had to, if you could get one guy out of all the Eagle free agents at a fair market value deal, you're not getting a Howie Roseman Philadelphia discount. You're not saying, Howie, go ahead and blow him out with an offer because we got to have him done and go ahead and overpay. Fair value deal. Who is the number one priority for you with all the Eagle free agents for Howie to get done?
Wow. The priority number one guy. I mean, I know Fletcher Cox is on that 1-year deal. Jordan Davis is obviously going to fill that role. Javon Hargrave's in that category. Man, oh my good. That's a really tough question, Jody Mack.
That's why they pay me the
$11.75 the guy that jumps to mind, because the Eagles, I think, are always going to invest in the defensive line through the draft. I think that's always where they're going to. But the issue that they've had a problem with, they've addressed it in free agency, they've addressed it in trades, is the safety position. So I feel like through the draft, they're always going to take care of the defensive line. I feel like in the secondary, that's where they ignore some things. I think it comes down to James Bradbury, and I think it comes down to CD Deuce, who's only leading the league in interceptions right now with 5. So I think they go either Bradbury or CD Deuce, but to get off the fence on those two, I'll give you an answer. I think they're going to go with CD Deuce in that respect there, because I think he's so versatile a player. And I can eliminate the defensive line here just because of the draft stock. You also talk about TJ Edwards. You talk about Kazir White betting on himself with the 1-year deal here in Philly. So it's interesting. It's a great question. It's not far and away in my mind, CD Deuce. There's great arguments for everybody, but if I'm saying one guy, interceptions, turnovers have been a huge problem of this Eagles defense for years now. And CD Deuce is up there right now as the league leader in interceptions, so I got to go with him as a guy I want to see re-signed here in Philadelphia. And maybe you do still get a little bit of that Philly discount because he just loves us so much. Maybe that'll be part of it.
Well, I think you tapped into where I would go, Mark, and that's the Philly discount. I think I go the easiest route. I think TJ Edwards or Marcus Epps will be the easiest route.
Okay.
So I think they will probably be first. I think he's more difficult because he's playing so well. Mm-hmm. You know, Howie Roseman is known for, he's smart when it comes to finances, and you don't negotiate when leverage is highest for the opposition. And right now, Chauncey's, as you mentioned, and that's where I'll end it with you. The interceptions, the turnovers, we talked about that luck before I get to it. At Marc Farzetta, follow Mark on Twitter. New episodes of the Farzy Show every Monday through Friday, 6 to 7, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook Live, everywhere you can watch streaming stuff. Mark, we brought this up with Nick Sirianni. We brought it up with Jonathan Gannon. They don't want to hear the term luck, but the Eagles are plus 15 in turnover ratio. The number 2 team in the NFL is plus 7. That's Baltimore. That is what they call way out of whack. There's a randomness to turnovers. That's the word I use. And Jody was joking about, because coaches don't want to hear luck, but they'll listen to random. Can plus 15 and 8 better than the number 2 team in the NFL? Can that continue? Or is there a regression to the mean on the horizon?
I mean, I think a lot of the same reasons to why it won't, or a lot of the same reasons why I don't know if the Eagles will go undefeated, but I know they'll at least flirt with that. It's because they just have a great mindset about, like, when I talk about it's focus. And protecting the football comes down to focus. And whether coaches want to admit it or not, there are things that happen outside your control that go in your favor. And that is the definition in my mind of luck. Nick Foles throws a pass off of, who is it, Neil's knee in
Keanu Neal.
Keanu Neal, thank you. And it happens to go in the hands of Torrey Smith. Yeah, okay. That's not something you forced happen. That's luck. So for me, I think luck actually absolutely exists. But the turnover thing for me for the Eagles is I look at Jalen Hurts and not that he doesn't do it, but he rarely puts the precious pigskin in peril. I see a guy like Miles Sanders who's had fumbling issues or drop issues as well in his career, not doing that this year. That's a laser focus about this team. And that's ultimately what I think the turnover battle helps them so much with. I mean, you're talking about a team right now who forces more turnovers than anybody. So when you talk about turnover ratio in the NFL, that's going to be pretty good for the Eagles as the season goes on. But when it comes to not giving the football away, I mean, right now you're looking at a guy like Jalen Hurts, who only has thrown 2 interceptions this year. He's second to only Tom Brady, who has 1. And there's a couple guys out there. Daniel Jones also hasn't turned the football over much when it's come to interceptions. They're being smart with the football. They're making efficient plays. They're trusting their receivers to make catches. They're not getting the ball tipped as much. Every once in a while, we'll see Jalen Hurts get a ball tipped to the line, but that is where a little bit of luck happens. It's not tipped into the hands of an opponent. So for me, I think it comes down to just that focus that they have, and I think that's just the way they play the game. For whatever reason, that's the way it's fallen into place. I think that number one reason is focus.
All right, Farzi, last one from me. What will the Folesian Society do if 10 days from now, either as the starting quarterback or coming off the Indianapolis bench, Nick Foles does what Nick Foles does, comes off the bench and throws touchdown passes and wins games, and pins the first loss of the year on the Philadelphia Eagles? What are all those people who have been saying Nick Foles walks on water? What will be their take?
Well, as soon as they get out of the Folesian Society prayer service, which I believe is every Wednesday, they'll tell you, I told you, should have never let this guy go. Look, I think, no, in all seriousness, I'll just think that they'll look at it and go, of course it's Nick Foles that comes back and ends the record and all that. It's the ghost of the Folesian past, I guess, that comes back to haunt the Eagles. But I think it'll be looked at like, just like that. Of all the people, of course, it had to be Foles. And at least it was done by somebody that we love so much. And by the way, it's not going to happen because the Colts are just absolutely. Do you think Jim Irsay is very happy that Daniel Snyder exists? Because if Daniel Snyder didn't exist, Jim Irsay would be getting 10 times more shade.
And think about that. You know, when you talk about luck, Mark, and the stars aligning, the Eagles are 8-0. We're all talking about it, the best team in football. And who are the next two on the schedule? Daniel Snyder's team, Jim Irsay's team.
That's a beautiful thing.
Carson Wentz's team and Nick Foles' team are the next two guys. And, oh, by the way.
And neither are going to play.
John and I talked about it earlier about the unfair criticism that both the new head coach and the owner of the Colts is taking because he decided to go with an outside-the-box hire. We're all assuming that those two guys are on the exact same page. If they get beat this week and they're losing and they're playing the Eagles in the game of close, do you think Jeff Saturday's going to worry one iota about putting in another quarterback and going, oh, my God, I'm going to have to deal with the wrath of my owner? He's going to give him the high finger. I'm trying to win games. What do you mean? Go ahead, fire me. ESPN hasn't even filled my chair yet. Pay me my contract that you foolishly signed, and I'll go back and talk for a living on ESPN. I'm telling you, Foles, Foles will be in that game. Mark my words.
I don't doubt it.
I admire the push. I disagree, but I admire the push.
We'll find out in 10 days. Oh, in the meantime, they got to beat the Commanders, which they will. But
Monday, JAKIB Sports pregame show with Marc Farzetta too. I'll be there.
Wow, look at you. That's a seamless plug. Thank you, brother. Oh, by the way, just real quick, I wanted my 3 slightly better hires. Slightly better than Jeff Saturday. So no way good hires. But here they are. Matt Ryan, while he's the backup quarterback.
Why not?
Why not? He's there. Pat McAfee, just because I want someone on the sidelines with less amount of sleevage.
No sleeves.
Than Bill Belichick. And then the last one was Peyton Manning. And I want him to still do the Manning cast for the 2, not 1, but 2 Monday Night Football games the Colts have remaining on their schedule this year.
They got 2 left.
They got 3 primetime games left, my friend.
And
3.
Oh, no. Is the other one Sunday night or Thursday night?
I believe the other one's Sunday night.
Oh, they'll be flexed out. Mark my words, they'll be flexed out of that one. That's not staying. Monday night you got to live with. Sunday you can flex out of. Oh, they'll be flexing out of the Indianapolis Colts. Farzy, good job. Thanks, brother.
Always a pleasure, fellas. Thanks so much.